Welcome, Middlers, to the Medium in the Middle podcast. My name is Stephanie, and I take you on a journey of self-discovery and spiritual exploration. I am a Reiki master teacher, a spiritual and business mentor, and of course, a psychic medium. And I am here to share my story and help you tap into your extraordinary abilities. Join me every Wednesday as we dive into the realms of intuition, energy healing, and all things mystical. Whether you're a seasoned spiritual seeker or just dipping your toes into the magical waters, this podcast is your go-to source for inspiration, guidance, and a whole lot of lessons and laughter along the way. Let's get started. Hello, Middlers. Welcome to episode 310. My name is Stephanie. I am the medium in the middle. Welcome if you are a middler, and welcome if you are new. If you are on your spiritual development journey and you are looking for some help, you are in the right place. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You can go back to episode 1 and start at the beginning, which will probably help you a lot if you are in the spiritual woo-woo mediumship energy world. But you can also treat my podcast like a Google search and search different topics to help you out. So there's lots of information to help you on your own spiritual development journey. Today's episode is around spiritual sickness. I have been sitting on this podcast episode for almost exactly 1 year. It was mid-June last year that this happened. And because there was only a few podcast episodes left before I break for the summer, all of the hard episodes I have been avoiding recording are coming. So the last 4 episodes are going to be big heavy hitters because I need to tell these stories. It's been a year or more that I have been avoiding some of these stories. And even though I podcast all the time, I've been doing it for 7 years, there are still stories that are sensitive, that are difficult to tell, that are personal, that are emotional, that I don't want to sit here and record, to be quite frank, where I know that they're important, I know that they're impactful, and I know I have to tell them. So as I'm going through and organizing what my last few episodes will be before my break, I have the big ones that I've been avoiding that I'm going to leave you with some bombs. So especially the last episode is woo. But today is about spiritual sickness. I want to share something that happened to me last year with my physical body, what I learned, what happened, what you can take away. We're looping back to boundaries. I haven't yapped about boundaries in a while. I used to be the boundary queen, but I feel like once my boundaries are in set and once your boundaries are in set, things run like a pretty well-oiled machine. But it's when things are thrown out of whack that you get challenged again. So this is also an episode about boundaries, when you need to reset them, when you need to revisit them, when you need to add more. So this is a difficult story to tell, but I know it's important to tell. So I am going to share details that are necessary and also leave out some details because, again, it's very personal, very emotional. And I don't want it to sound super negative, even though it was a difficult situation. So just a few quick announcements before we jump into this week's episode. As I mentioned, the podcast is going on break. The last episode will be on June 24th, and then I will be taking July and August off of podcasting, coming back on September 9th with brand new episodes for you and a big podcast refresh. I will still be posting lots online, and we will be doing kind of a blast from the past, oldies but goodies, pulling out some of my old favorite episodes to highlight, and there will still be a few episodes released over the summertime, just because the podcast is turning 7 and there's some big milestones coming up. Medium in the Middle turns 6 next week. That was the day that I officially launched my website. I officially launched my business 6 years ago next week, so next week's episode is going to be a very special birthday episode. For Reiki trainings, if you are looking to learn with me, we are booking into November. I know. If you see a date that works for you, jump on it. There will be November and December courses. So I will have all the dates that are available up on my website. There will be more dates coming for 2026. Also, I am adding mediumship practice circles. They have been selling out and very popular and very helpful. I've been getting a lot of positive feedback on those. So I am essentially trying to add them everywhere I can in my schedule just to give everyone an option to join, and also different times, so different start times depending on your availability and your time zone. So the next one is Thursday, June 11th, and then there's Saturday, June 27th. There's one on Wednesday, Friday, and a Saturday in July. So you can always check my website for the most updated information, themediuminthemiddle.com. If I ever add anything, I will post it on there. And then I usually also post on Instagram just to give you a heads up. But there are lots of circles coming up to hopefully allow some availability for you to join. As a reminder, no experience is necessary. All mediumship levels are welcome. If you want to practice mediumship, you're welcome at the Mediumship Practice Circle. So let's jump right into this week's episode. As I mentioned at the start of the episode, I have been avoiding this one for a long time. And when I decided to take the podcast break, I knew I had to release this before the break. And then on the theme of channelers, channeling, meeting channelers, working with channelers, last week I had a channeler come in, and again, she found me. She knew she had to come see me. The kind of same thing that has been happening with a lot of people, which I've shared a lot of the stories on the podcast. It's been really cool the last few months, being able to meet these channelers and help them on their way and see them have all these aha moments. It's been really, really fun. So this was another case of that. And I was going through my checklist of what about this? What about this? What about this? And she had kind of a big brain injury a few years back, and it resulted in her entire life changing. And I was just peeling apart every single piece of it, trying to figure out if this was at all connected to her spirituality, her intuition, if any abilities changed afterwards. And we were just going through a lot of the different scenarios that had happened. And her response to a lot of things were, oh, I hadn't thought about it, or I didn't think about that, or I didn't consider that. And my response to that was, when you're driving home today, everything is going to click. You're going to email me in the next week and tell me. And she did. So it all worked out. But it was just another push that I have to share this story. So I'm going to share what happened to me last year, and I'm going to share all the lessons that I learned, and I'm also going to share all the boundaries that I had to change or adjust as a result. I used to really rant about boundaries, and I haven't in a while. I was the self-proclaimed boundary queen. If something's bothering you, put a boundary. If you don't like something, put a boundary. If spirit's bothering you, put a boundary. If you can't sleep at night, put a boundary. Everything with spirituality, you can put a boundary. And a boundary is just simply, what do you want? What do you not want? So if you want spirit to bother you in your dreams, great. If you don't want spirit to bother you in your dreams, great. You get to decide whatever you want and whatever you don't want. And you put boundaries anywhere that you can make a choice. So yes, there are some things that you can't make choices on, but anywhere you do have the ability to make a choice, you can put a boundary because you are in control. And this was really brought to the forefront with this example. So I learned the hard way this time, but par with the course sometimes. We have to learn a lesson by getting smacked in the face. So I'm going to lay out some information which is all relevant to the story. So this story is June 2025. 2025 was a very hard year for me. Again, I try to always be positive. I try to always speak positively. Your throat is very powerful, so I really try to watch what I say. If you're one of my students, you've heard me say, watch what you say, because it goes out your mouth and in your ears, and your brain is always listening. So I cannot stress how much I watch what I say. So that's another reason why I've avoided telling this story, because in order to tell the story, I have to say some things that I don't like saying out loud. But yes, last year was a difficult year for me. I just didn't have the greatest year for many reasons. This health concern was kind of right in the middle of it all. Last year, I was really dragging my feet. I didn't want to be medium in the middle anymore. I was like, I just want to go pour coffee. My brain hurts. I want someone to tell me what to do. Like, I can't keep doing this entrepreneurship thing. It was just very testy. I was very testy, I'll say that. I was being tested in many different ways. I had purchased a new home the past December. So I guess December 2024. And then I moved into the house right at the end of the year. So I had just bought a new house and I didn't sell my old house yet because I was keeping it for a while. So for 6 months, I knew that things were going to be tight because I was floating my old house with a tenant. I had just bought this new, bigger house all on my own. And I just kind of had it in my mind of I just bought a house. I just emptied my bank account for the new deposit and all of the things to fix up things in the house and get the old house ready for the tenants. So I kind of had it in my mind that I wasn't going to go on any vacations in 2025, which might have also added to the overwhelm of 2025. So I was like, again, I hate to say these words, can't afford to go on vacation because I just bought a house. Ugh. That's what I was thinking in my head. I'm sorry I had to say it out loud and you had to hear it. I had a week off in June to go to Ontario, where I'm from. So I live in Banff, Alberta, which is on one side of Canada, and I'm from Ontario, which is on the other side of Canada. So it was my cousin's wedding in June. So I was flying to Ontario for a wedding and I was going to stay in Ontario for a week. All my family is there. So I usually spend half the week with my mom, spend half the week with my dad, and do the whole visit everybody in 7 days chaos. So this trip in June was going to be the only time I was leaving for the year, and I knew that. So I also planned 10 days off in July for a staycation, and I knew I couldn't go anywhere, but I was like, I'm going to stay home and enjoy Banff, and I'm not going anywhere, but I have this time off. So I had this trip in June. I was going to Ontario for my cousin's wedding, and I left home in 2011, and it is currently 2026, which means for the past 15 years, I have been going back to visit family. So I have learned a thing or 10 along the way, and I have set many boundaries along the way as well to try to make it as enjoyable as possible because, again, I try to stay positive, but I do not like going to Ontario to visit, to say it nicely. It's always chaotic. I'm always here, there, and everywhere. My parents are split and they live 2 hours apart, so I'm here, I'm there, I'm borrowing a car, I'm booking lunch, I'm seeing this person. This person's mad I didn't spend enough time with them. This person's mad that I'm leaving. This person's mad that I'm staying. It's just a lot of push and pull. And over the years, it's just something that I dread doing. So I've learned over the years, I don't have to go as often. So I started only going when there was an event, a wedding, a baby shower, a wedding. So for the last few years, I've only gone if there's an event where I can see everybody, so I don't have to organize seeing a million people. I can just see everyone at the event. Then I've also learned that a week is too long. A week is far too long to be with family. And I was like, okay, you know what? I don't have to stay for a week. I could just go for the event and leave. So again, I noticed things that need to be fixed, so I fixed them, Then I was borrowing a car became a big to-do, so I rented a car. Then it was who I stayed with, who I don't stay with, how long I stay with them, how long I don't stay with them, who gets so many days, who gets so many more days. Okay, you know what? I'm going to stay in a hotel some days, so I actually get to feel like I'm on vacation. I get alone time, I get rest, it's good for my energy. Then I'm like, okay, maybe it's too much family time, so maybe I book in seeing a friend while I go to Ontario. Okay, so I'll spend some time with a friend, I'll spend some time with mom, I'll spend some time with dad, I'll spend some time here, I'll spend some time there. And I've been doing all of these things every year to try to make these trips back as tolerable as possible. But I've noticed that the 2 to 3 weeks leading up to my Ontario visits, I always dread. Number one, I'm usually not that excited to go. In this case, I was excited for the wedding, but that's 1 day out of 7 that I was going to be there. When I'm there, I always try to keep my positive attitude as much as possible, and that usually lasts till about day 4, and then it crashes and burns. And then when I come back from Ontario, I have like a 2-week recovery time where it takes my energy to get back to normal. So it's just this, 5 or 6 week to do that I just really don't enjoy. Again, I'm trying not to be negative. These are just straight facts. And all of these facts are relevant to today's story. So on this trip, I was there for the wedding. I was excited for the wedding, all the things for the wedding. I was like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to help with the wedding. I'm going to be at my cousin's house. I'm going to keep busy. And I've done this for 15 years, going back to visit multiple times a year. So I've learned over the years. And to wrap this up in as little words as possible, it was the worst trip home in 15 years. And I still don't know if it was so awful because I just finally saw things as they were. I don't know if things are just getting worse. I don't know if things changed for the worse. I don't know if it was just a bunch of bad things happening at once. I can't actually pinpoint why this trip was so bad. It was just everything was bad about it. Again, I don't want to get into too many details. It was just, quote, the worst trip home ever. So when I got home, I knew that I was going to be going into like decompression mode. And I want to start this spiritual sickness journey from the going home piece. So I came home on a Wednesday. I still remember I went Wednesday to Wednesday, and I got home Wednesday night. I landed in Calgary at like 10:30 p.m. So I got back to Banff like just after midnight, and I worked on Thursday. Of course, I always go right back into work. And I remember coming home, trying to reflect, trying to learn the lessons, trying to juice the lemons about why was that so bad? What happened? What could I have done better? Was it my attitude? How can I see things differently? How can I look at things in a positive light? How could I adjust things next time to make it better? What are the concessions I need to make in order to have this never happen again? Where did things go wrong? Where do I need boundaries? I was just reflecting and reflecting and reflecting. And the first big thing that I took away from especially on the way home on the Wednesday, I was like, holy cow, am I lucky? And it really made me understand the people that I work with a lot more who don't have the perfect scenario for their energy or to work in. And what I mean by this is in Banff, my daily life is so curated and protected. Every single hour of my day is planned exactly how I want it. I only do things I want. I only see people I want. I only spend time with people that I like. I have my schedule, I have my routine, I eat properly, I go to the gym 5 days a week, I sleep really well every single night for 8 to 9 hours, I walk my dog, I get outside, I see friends every day, I eat food I like, I do things I like, I am around people I like. If I don't like something, I can easily change it. I work for myself, so everything is in my control. I make my own schedule. Just everything is in my control. And I am very, very lucky and privileged to do that. I also don't have kids. I don't have a partner. Everything is whatever I need to work optimally. So my energy, my health is always at 100% because I make it that way. And I control everything in order to keep my health and energy at 100%. I'm an energy worker who works with clients now 5 days a week, but for a long time I was 6 days a week. So I work with a lot of people a week, and my energy always has to be at 1,000%. There is never a reason why I should be off in any way. And I take that very, very seriously, and I focus on that. A lot of people are like, how do you maintain your energy? And I maintain my energy by sleep, food, working out, going outside, and making sure that I'm around people that I want to be around. I'm only doing things I want to do. So having a week of none of that threw me for a loop. As soon as I was out of control of all of those things, we all know what it's like being around family. We all know the difficulties, and especially like the obligations of you have to be here. You need to go visit this person. You have to stay with this person. You have to spend this time here. All of those things just came crashing down. And no matter what I did to maintain my energy, I just started spiraling. I was like, okay, I need alone time. Let me buy a hotel. Okay, I need to be able to go where I want. Okay, let me arrange a car. Okay, I need to be able to eat food that I want. Okay, let me buy my own food. Okay, and all of the things I tried to do still didn't keep me afloat, it felt like. So when I came back to Banff, it was like damage control. So I was really reflecting, being like, wow, maybe this trip was to teach me how lucky I am that I get to curate every minute of every single day of my life, who I'm with, who I'm around, what information I listen to, what conversations I'm part of. So I got home late Wednesday night, landed at 10:30. Yeah, by the time I got back to Banff, I think it was like 1 a.m. Thursday morning. Thursday, right back to work, got up, went to the gym, worked all day. It was a normal day. Friday, I had a friend coming to visit from Australia. I got up, went to the gym, as I always do, and my wrists started hurting. And it kind of felt like I slept on my wrists with them like pulling backwards, like my fingertips pulling towards my nose. And the whole time at the gym, I was like shaking my wrists, massaging my wrists. I was like, wow, my wrists really hurt. It's like, that's weird. Maybe I slept weird. Maybe I did something weird at the gym yesterday because I had a week off at the gym, whatever it might be. So then my friend was here visiting and I met up with her and she was staying with me and we went out and, I was like, oh, my wrists are really hurting. And then my arms started to feel like they were 10,000 pounds each. Like it was like I couldn't lift my arms. And I just assumed I did too much at the gym. So I assumed that I hurt myself at the gym. And I remember telling my friends, like, my hands and arms really hurt. They were kind of like, oh, like, monitor it and see what happens. So Friday night, I went to bed and I was woken up in the middle of the night in pain. And I have a very high pain tolerance, but this was on the verge of tears pain. I couldn't move. I couldn't lean because my shoulders hurt. I couldn't sit because my arms felt too heavy. I couldn't lay down because I was uncomfortable. I just could not get comfortable. It was my arms, my shoulders, my elbows, my hands, everything just felt, the only way I could describe it is they felt like they were 200 pounds each. So I was like holding my elbows, trying to lift up my hands, leaning on my hips. So I was up all night in agony. And then I was researching things, trying to figure out what it could be. And I was like, I don't think this is from the gym. And I worked the next day. I was like, okay, I work at, I think it was 11 a.m. or 11:30 because I had the mediumship practice circle. So I thought, you know what? I'm up anyways. It's 3 a.m. I'm just going to go to the walk-in clinic as soon as they open because the walk-in clinic is always crazy. And it was a Saturday, so it's even crazier. So I said, I'll just be the first one there. I'll go wait in line and then I'll get this checked out so that I can be at work by 11 a.m. And I think they opened at 9. So around, I think 7, I just gave up trying to sleep and I started to prepare to get ready to go to the walk-in clinic. Now, I highly underestimated how long this would take me because I couldn't move my arms. So I couldn't lift my hands over my head. I was in a lot of pain, so I kept having to stop and sit down. So needless to say, it took me like 2 hours to be able to get dressed, brush my teeth, and walk there because also I couldn't walk very well. I didn't know what was happening at the time. Again, this is all relevant to the story. So I went to the walk-in clinic, but by now the walk-in clinic had been open for like 30 or 45 minutes, and there was already a 2.5 hour wait. Well, I can't wait for 2.5 hours, so I have to work in 2.5 hours, so I'm going to leave. So then I thought, well, what else could I do because I have to work in 2 hours? So I was like, oh, I'll go to the pharmacy and ask the pharmacist what medicine I should buy for when your arms stop working. The pharmacy wasn't open yet, though, because the pharmacy opened at 10 a.m. So I sat outside and I waited for the pharmacy to open. And then, 30 minutes later or 45 minutes later, the pharmacy opened. So I went in and I asked the pharmacist, I said, hey, pharmacist, my arms aren't working. What medicine should I take? She was like, what? I was like, my arms aren't working. I can't move my arms. And I kind of showed her that I could barely move my arms. I was holding them. They really hurt. I was like, I can't really move my hands. I didn't have any strength in my hands. I couldn't turn on or off the light switch for the bathroom. I had a very difficult time dressing myself. And I was sitting there holding my arms, looking at her, being like, so should I buy a Aleve, Advil, Tylenol? What do I buy to make this go away? I work in 2 hours. And she was like, you need to go to the hospital. And I was like, no, I'm not going to the hospital. I was just at the walk-in clinic and they're busy. So I just need you to tell me what medicine to buy. She's like, no, you need to go to the emergency room. Even if you went to the walk-in clinic, they would send you to the emergency room. You need to go to the emergency room. And I said, well, this is not an emergency. My arms just aren't working. Can you please just advise me? Do I need Voltaren? Should I buy Advil? Can you just tell me what to buy, lady? I work in 2 hours. Well, now I work in an hour because this was at 10 a.m. And she said, you need to go to the emergency room. And I said, this is not an emergency. She said, yes, it is. Your arms aren't working. And I said, it doesn't seem like an emergency, though, because everything else is working. Anyways, after a while of going back and forth with this very, very kind pharmacist, she pretty much was like, you are going to the emergency room right now, and then you're going to come back here after the emergency room and tell me what happens to ensure that you go to the emergency room. And I was like, fine. So I waddle my little self over to the emergency room. It's Banff. It's very small, small town. And there was no one in the emergency room. And I said, hi, I know this is an emergency, but my arms aren't working. And the pharmacist made me come here. And they were like, yeah, come on in. So anyway, so then I was at the hospital. And it's, 10:15, 10:30. The circle must have been at 11:30. It was like 10:45 and I was still waiting to see the doctor. And I was like, oh no, like, do I leave and come back because I work? Do I wait? Do I cancel the circle? And as I was getting closer and closer to like the time that the circle was supposed to happen, I was like, I'm not going to be out of here in time. So I need to cancel the circle, which I've never, ever done. But I also like didn't have all of my stuff with me. So I had to message the friend that was staying with me to open my computer, to send an email to everybody to be like, hey, I can't come. I'm in the hospital. So anyways, I'm at the hospital. I asked the doctor what's wrong. She gives me some medicine and she calls for some blood work, all these tests, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, can I leave? Because I have to work. And she was like, yeah, like take this medicine and go. So I go back to the pharmacist and I say, hey, I went to the hospital. She gave me this medicine. I have to work in 10 minutes. So I'll come back after work to pick up this medicine. And the pharmacist like rolled her eyes at me and she was like, okay, like what do you do for work? I was like, gotta go by. So I came home and I still remember I had to cancel the circle, which was from 11:30 till 12:45. And I think I had a client at 1:30 and I think I walked in the door at 1:21 and I sat down and I took my clients for the rest of the day because you don't need arms to do distance work. And I could just kind of hide my arms from my clients for the whole day. And then afterwards I went and I got my medicine. And that's the story of how this all began. So I'm going to give you the Coles Notes version now. From my arms not working, essentially everything got worse. All of my joints stopped working is essentially the easiest way to describe it. So my shoulders, my elbows, my hands, my fingers, my hips, my knees, my feet, my toes. I couldn't move my arms. Like I said, I couldn't even turn on the light switch. I couldn't hold a cup. I couldn't hold a fork. I had no strength in my arms. I could barely walk because all my joints felt very swollen, like I couldn't use them. So I was like kind of waddling. I had to lean when I was trying to walk down the stairs. I couldn't feed myself. I couldn't bring a cup to my lips. I couldn't pull my pants down to go to the bathroom because I had no strength to pull down my pants. I couldn't dress myself. I couldn't wash my hair, all of these things. And I was very, very lucky because, again, I had a friend arrive from Australia on the Friday, and she was staying with me. And I had to ask her for help. The thing I hate, the thing that I'm awful at. I had to ask her for help for everything. She quite literally had to take off my pants to help me pee. She had to take off my clothes when I had to shower. She had to cut my food. She had to bring my plate to the table. She had to help me drink water. Everything. Like, she had to do everything for me. And it was still a battle of, ask for help. Stop trying to do that. I could barely walk anywhere, so I couldn't really leave or go far from my house. I couldn't walk my dog, so I had to ask for help for that. I couldn't bend over to even pick up his potties because, again, I could barely move. And it just kind of kept getting worse and worse and worse. So I had many more trips to the doctors and the hospitals and specialists and all of these things. And this ended up lasting for about 3 months. The good news is that after my Australian friend, she was here for a week, the day she left, my cousin was coming to stay with me for 10 days. So she then took over cutting my food, bringing me water, helping me get dressed. Again, because I couldn't do any of that. I quite literally did not have the strength to turn on a light switch. I don't know how better to describe it. So it was getting worse and better, worse and better. It was my right side, it was my left side. And the whole time I'm just thinking, what the hell happened? And all I knew was that it was the day after I got home from Ontario. And I saw a few energy healers as well because you know me, I wouldn't just go to the hospital and the doctors. I was booking appointments with all my people. And I was like, oh, this is energy. This is my family. These are boundaries from everything that happened that week that I was home. My body just went poof, like a little swollen ball. It was like, we're not doing this anymore. And my body completely shut down. And it was teaching me that I had to ask for help, but it was also realizing how stubborn I am. And that was a big part of going to Ontario was I realized how stubborn Taita is. And there was just so many attributes that I was witnessing that I was just thinking to myself, I hope I'm never like that when I'm older. I hope I never get to that spot when I'm older. And then here I was barely being able to ask for help to walk down the stairs, carry something, cut my food, just again being the most stubborn person ever. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing the exact same thing. I was just saying, I hope I never become that. Again, deep, serious, family repeating traits that need to be changed stuff. So I had to learn to ask for help. And this happened it kind of got worse for 6 weeks and then slowly got better, I would say, for 8 weeks. So I had to pause my gym membership, which I have never done in probably the last 10 plus years. I've always gone to the gym 5 days a week. That's what I do. But I couldn't even lift a fork, so I couldn't go to the gym. And I could barely walk, so I couldn't go to the gym. Because for a while I was trying to just go to the gym, but just use my legs. And then I could barely walk, so yeah, it was again just slow erosion of things. So I didn't go to the gym for June, July, August, and in September, at the end of September, I started to go back to the gym and I was lifting 5 pounds. I have been CrossFitting since 2013, 2012. Again, 5 days a week. I used to be a CrossFit coach. I am strong. I'm the friend that you call when you need to move something. I'm the friend that you call when you're moving to help furniture. It's always like, hey, Steph, I need your muscles. I'm like, yeah, no problem. I'll come over. You hold the door. That's always what I say. You hold the door. I'll grab the furniture. So going from, 35-pound dumbbells to 5-pound dumbbells was just a shot to my heart. And I had to slowly rebuild my strength from September, October, from 5 pounds to 10 pounds to 15 pounds to 20 pounds to 25 pounds. It took me months. And I also couldn't go 5 days a week anymore because my body physically could not do it. So I had to go down to 3 days a week. Oh, I'm just reviewing my notes from last year because I wrote everything down because I knew this would be a podcast episode because I knew this was a lesson and I knew I was learning the hard way. But I forgot that along with the no working limbs, all my joints were swollen. I also had hives and a rash all over my body. So if you were to touch my body, it would stay red. It looked like when I brushed my hair, it looked like someone had beaten me. And it was just because my skin was so sensitive. So along with all of this, I was red from this rash because anything that touched me would make it red. Like my shirt touching me made my skin red. My hairbrush made my skin red. If I touched my face, it made my skin red. And it would stay red. I have some funny videos of my friends writing, of course, curse words on my arms, and it's staying on my arms for hours because they just traced it on my hand. Anyways, so I'm just going to pull up a list of lessons that I wrote down because I was like, this is insane. This has lasted months. What is the universe trying to teach me? Why are they doing it in this way? Again, I need to juice the lemon of this experience. This phone note is called Hospital Lessons. Cue emotional, personal information. Lesson number 1, I had to accept help. 2, boundaries with family. 3, what I don't want to end up like. 4, slowing down. 5, time off to rest and do nothing. No to-do list, no cleaning, no plans. Another big part about this was I was very proud of myself that last year I was going to take off 10 days in summer to enjoy my summer. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going anywhere, but I'm going to do the 1 week in June in Ontario, and then I'm going to have a staycation in July because I'm not going on any more vacations this year and I'm just going to enjoy Banff. And I just wanted to take time off and enjoy Banff. And my friend was coming to visit and my cousin was coming to visit. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to have these visitors. I'm going to enjoy my time. So I had this time off and I couldn't move. So when that 10 days did come, I couldn't really leave my house because I couldn't walk further than a block without getting very, very sore. I couldn't really stay out for too long because I couldn't really sit. I couldn't stand. Again, all my limbs felt very heavy. So I was like, oh, I was supposed to have time off to literally do nothing. I sat on the porch. And everyone had to come to me. I couldn't make them food. I couldn't get them drinks. I couldn't clean. I just sat on the porch. And it was so difficult. So that was that lesson. Time off to rest and actually do nothing. Going to the gym every day. I needed a rest from that as well. That was another lesson. 1, 2, 3, 4. That was number 6. Number 7, I had to learn to take more time off. 2 days off a week in 2026. I knew I had to take that so seriously because I was smacked on my bottom last year. So I was like, 2 days off a week is now a non-negotiable. This isn't a reward. I need 2 days off a week. I also had to learn how to advocate for myself and my health and what I needed from healthcare professionals, and also what I needed from my woo-woo people, because it was a mix of my woo-woo appointments and doctors and specialists and going to Calgary for specialists and blood work and the pharmacy and medications and just really listening to my body. Again, I kept being like, I'm an energy worker. I can fix this. And it was a mix of I can fix this and you need help. You need to listen to your body. I had to cut some people off in my life. I had to go very low contact with some people. I lost a friendship at this time as well. That was hanging on by a thread anyways, but it was just, the straw that broke the camel's back. I also learned about how happy I was that I moved away from Ontario, that I moved to Banff, that I curated the life that I wanted, that I made all these changes, that I am not still back there doing the same things, living that life all the time. I made the change. I did the thing. I left. I changed the habits. I was not going to keep repeating cycles that I see my family going through over and over again. So I was like, thank God I left. Like it was just, again, reinforcing those lessons. I learned a lot about growing old and aging, what I want to be, what do I want to do, how I want to act. And seeing Taita not being able to accept help was very, very difficult. And seeing how stubborn she was with everything, it was so difficult to watch this like strong, independent woman that now cannot ask for help to her own detriment. I talked about this on a podcast a few years ago. She is getting older. I haven't talked about her for a while. One day I'll do an episode on why. But there's, again, just been so many behaviors that I'm like, no, I don't want to end up like that. For example, she doesn't want to be old. She doesn't want people to see that she's old, so she won't use her walker and her cane. She needs a walker and a cane. She refused to use it to the point where she fell and broke her arm and ended up in an old folks' home. I shared a podcast about this a few years ago. And it was just like she refused to use the help of a walker, that she's hurt herself even more. But we all do that. Not to that extreme, but it's like, oh, I'm not going to do this one thing that will help me, so I'm going to make it worse. And I noticed that I was doing that. And I saw it in her. I was like, oh, she won't use her walker and now she broke her arm and now all of these, consequences. And I was like, oh, look at me doing the same thing in different ways. It's always so easy to point these things out in other people, especially family. But then you notice they're just a mirror for you. I'm just doing the exact same thing in other ways. And that's what this big lesson was, oh, I'm just doing these same things in different ways, thinking that I've learned from this, I've grown from this, I'm not like this. And I'm like, oh no, I am. And look at all of these things uncovering. And the last thing was around not everything needing to be a fight, not everything needing to be a battle, not everything needing to be like having to stand up for certain things. I can just remove myself from certain situations. And actually, as I'm reviewing this and thinking back to last year and all the lessons that were learned, It's also not living my life for other people and seeing other people in my family do that, or seeing the expectation that we do that, or even just, I hate to say manipulation, but when Tights is like, oh, you're going to come visit me. You better come visit me before I die. I'm going to die and you're not going to come visit me. That used to get to me, and I would be like, okay, yeah, I gotta come. And it would guilt me, and then I would do things out of guilt, so then I wouldn't want to go. So then I'm going out of obligation, and then I don't have a good time when I'm there because I feel like I was obligated to do it. And it's like this whole circle. But I really feel like I've done a very good job since 2018 of not living my life for other people. I do everything for me selfishly. I have no one else to live for but myself, so I don't think it's selfish at all. And I make choices for myself with me in mind, and that includes where I travel, who I hang out with, what I do every day. I left my engagement in $1 million home and I moved across the country by myself to move into a basement apartment, and I rented a room, and I had never been happier because I finally chose myself and did things for me. And whether it's in a relationship or whether it's with family or whether it's with friends, I never understood why people thought it was selfish to put yourself first. You should always put yourself first. You're the only person putting yourself first. Especially me, I live on the other side of the country from all my family. I don't have anyone looking out for my back out here. I don't have a partner that does things for me. I have me. And I am responsible to do everything. But all of these lessons taught me a lot. And it was over and over and over again for months, right? Like I had to ask for help multiple times a day when all my limbs stopped working. I had to advocate for myself over and over and over again. I had to communicate all of this to my family and have difficult conversations. Again, even the gym thing, I know it doesn't seem like a big deal, but when you go to the gym every single day at the same time for 8 years and not going every day at that time, it was a reminder that I wasn't going to the gym because I couldn't go to the gym, because my arms didn't work, because I couldn't even hold, the leash for my dog, let alone go to the gym to do anything. Like it just kind of felt like I was rubbing salt in the wound over and over and over again until I finally accepted that I just had to rest. The universe made me rest. They made me accept help. They showed me all of these things and be like, if you want to change, you have to make changes. You need to accept help. You need to rest. Resting is not earned. So that's why this year I've been so dead set on rest. I'm like 2 days off a week. Don't waver from that. And actually, twice this last month, I worked 6 days a week. I think I must have just messed up the schedule, or I forgot to book an extra day or whatever it was. And I was so mad at myself. And I was like, again, I'm doing these things that I used to do where I'm like, oh, I'll just work 6 days. And especially when I took 3 days off to go to Waterton, I know I worked 6 days on the week that I came back. And I thought it was just a mistake. But I know for sure I was like, oh, I had 3 days off last week, so I should work 6 days this week. Like my brain still goes there. So I really wanted to share this because it was a difficult time for me. I hate to say that it was negative, but it was a negative experience that made me learn a lot of things, or it highlighted a lot of things, or it reinstated a lot of things. And I kind of think about my energy and what I need for my energy, like water, like food. It's my survival. I need my space. I need alone time. I need sleep. I need healthy food that I cook at home. I need to go to the gym. I need to go outside and walk my dog. Like all those things I know I need, like food and water. And I protect those things when I can perfectly control my environment when I'm in Banff. And it's also like, well, what happens when you can't perfectly control your environment? I can't just live in that little bubble. So it's also about knowing what I need when I travel. And I'm not putting pressure on myself to feel the pressure to go and visit, and the constant reminders and the I'm going to die before you see me. I always make a joke. And I say, and I'm a medium, so I can do this. I'm always like, don't worry, Taita, if you die, I can still talk to you. So it's all good. You're not getting rid of me. I call you all the time. I'm still going to call you all the time. And she does laugh at that. So if she's using her death to make me feel bad, I'm at least going to use it to make her laugh. So I wanted to share this experience on the podcast because it was a physical representation of energy in a very, very, very big way, and how I was impacted by certain situations, people, things that happened. And also, I feel like I hid this all of last year. I never talked about it once You wouldn't have known if you go back to any of my content. You wouldn't have seen anything. I really tried not to talk about it. Again, I don't like talking about things. I don't like ruminating in it and just going over and over. You might not have seen my hands moving that much, but I was still going to work. The only thing I missed was when I was in the hospital and I had to cancel that circle. And I've been wanting to share this story, but like I said, it's difficult, it's emotional, but I know it will be helpful to others to hear because I also want you to think about your physical body mixed with your energy and how things around you affect you. And if you do have a choice to change the things around you based on what you need, do so because you should be treating this stuff like food and water. I moved across the country in order to make sure I could be myself, live a life I wanted to do things for myself and not other people, not just be a copy paste of the generation before me. And also knowing exactly what I need to feel my best, to be my best, to perform at my best, to live my best life, to be happy every day, to feel good every day. Like, again, I not that I took that for granted, but I didn't realize how curated everything in my life is to make everything perfect. But it's all by choices that I've made. Some of them easy, a lot of them difficult. And I was just got off the phone with my mentee and we were speaking about this as well when she's like, oh, I can only listen when I slow down. And the universe has been giving her many situations to slow down. And coloring was one of the ways that she really feels connected. And I was saying how you need to treat coloring like food and water. Like if that's your slow down state, there's no option anymore. This isn't when I have time to color. It's you need to color in order to slow down, in order to get the messages from your guides, in order for your life to be easier. Or you just keep letting life be hard. I said, you can learn the hard way if you want to, but if you know that when you slow down, you get messages and those messages are the exact thing you need to hear that make everything easier and line up, this is now like water. And I think it's very interesting that I just had that call today because I half recorded the podcast before my clients and now I'm recording this part after. And that conversation as well was just reinforcement to me that this conversation is important, that I need to be sharing this and that it's vulnerable, but this is what the podcast is for. I can't always be telling funny stories and jokes. Sometimes it's serious, and we all have the hard family stuff that we're growing through and learning through and trying not to repeat and trying to be better and trying not to let it affect us, but it's always the most difficult layer. Especially in spirituality, I find like the family component is always the most difficult. You can adjust with your friends, you can set boundaries at work, you can, be the people you want to be, but coming out to your family or being that person around your family is like the most difficult part because they don't know you that way. Thank you for listening. I hope this helps. I hope this makes you feel seen. I know we all have family stuff. We all have difficult things. We all have areas we need boundaries on. We all don't feel seen, heard, understood. Our bodies physically yell at us and we ignore it until finally we get knocked out for months and all your limbs stop working until you finally listen. And I listened, but it took about half the year last year and it was a rough one. But 2026 is off to a great start. I am making changes. I am doing things differently. I'm listening to myself, my body, the universe, what I want to do, making choices that make me happy, not for other people. Everything's feeling good. And just one last final thing to answer any lingering questions. They never figured out what my limbs were. All my blood tests came back normal. Every specialist couldn't find anything. Everything was quote unquote normal. I was slightly inflamed, but they couldn't figure out why I was in so much pain. I got rushed to see all the specialists. And again, it was like, everything's normal, everything's fine. And I was like, but I'm not fine. So that was also a mix of advocating for myself and going to another doctor, going to another specialist, but also realizing this was energy. And that's why nothing was showing up on my test. That's why everything was normal. That's why I was only showing as slightly inflamed. So I never actually got answers to what it was, but I know it was energy and I know it was my body speaking to me. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this podcast. I release new episodes every Wednesday and there will be new episodes all of June. You can follow me on Instagram at Medium in the Middle, TikTok, Substack, wherever you are on socials. I am over there as well. And make sure you're following so that we can stay in contact this summer when there is no weekly podcast. But until next Wednesday, Middlers, when I see you in your ears, I hope you have a wonderful week. Bye.